You can work really hard, you can have good plans, and you can execute on those plans. You cannot ignore your unconscious beliefs about money and expect your money situation to change. You're trying so hard, you're putting in the effort, you're doing all the right things, and nothing changes. Your money situation, probably less the result of your life's circumstances and more the result of your beliefs that you have about money. And it's the collection of beliefs that you have about money that creates your reality about money. And I will go even further, that it's more than likely your beliefs about yourself, who you believe you are, that is really creating those additional beliefs about money that are very limiting. The way I like to describe this is the way my mentor would describe beliefs about self versus beliefs about the external. If you have a belief that you live in a hostile world, we can look at that belief and we can work on that belief. But where is it really rooted? It's probably rooted in a belief that you are a victim. If you believe that you're a failure, that you're broke, that you're poor, the world will look like a place that has very few opportunities for you and very little abundance. Maybe change that belief about the external, change your belief about whether or not the world is an abundant place with opportunities. You could change that and it might work. If it doesn't work, it's probably because you haven't gotten to the root of that belief. And the root of that belief is the belief you have about yourself. You might be thinking to yourself, I'm not creating that reality, it's actually happening. And that's, of course, the way reality feels. It feels like this is just how it is. But we have so much going on under the hood that is creating that sense of reality. So when you change those, it has a tendency to generalize throughout your entire life because you are the center of that. So without realizing it, all of these beliefs are mostly unconscious and they are shaping your reality. I'm not saying there isn't such a thing as an objective reality that you're living in, but that you're never going to know that reality. You're only going to know the reality that passes through your filters, that passes through your five senses, that passes through your beliefs. And we can change those beliefs. And when we change those beliefs, like I said, it will give you a sense that your reality has changed. When I think about where I am now and where I was 10 years ago, it feels like a completely different reality. And what came first was changing my beliefs. Your reality feels like this is just how things are. But we can question that and we can find out, well, what is all of that based on? Reality is not set in stone. It's an extension of your beliefs. So the first step to this is to find out, well, what is that? What are those unconscious thoughts and beliefs and feelings that you have about money? You're hearing voices about money all the time that you're not even aware of. So you have to slow this down and start to think about it. And the best way that I know of to do that is through journaling. It's not the only way, but I find it to be the best way. Chances are you're going to have some interesting feelings come up about money that maybe you're not very comfortable with yourself. That happens a lot. And what I realized as all of this was coming out, and it was journaling, and it took me a few days. It's not like I sat down to journal and it just all came out. No, it took a while of coming back to it daily and just asking myself, what do I believe about money? What do I think about money? So you will find in your own language, if you allow the words to come up, and that's what I think is great about journaling. Don't put too much thought to it. Just write. Let it come out. Just let it flow. And what I realized when all this stuff started coming out, I didn't realize before doing this how much pain I associated with money. Now, I could say, of course, I want more money. But what I realized unconsciously is I hated money. Why? Why do I hate money? What could that possibly be about? And so kept writing more and more about it. And the reason why I hated money is because I felt like it was the thing that was limiting me. I felt like all these things that I want to do by 25, by 30 years old, by 40 years old, that I had all these ideas of what I was going to be doing. And I wasn't doing any of them. And I thought it was money that was in my way. And so I associated money with pain. And I went deeper and I realized I started getting these images of my parents when I was really young. I got images of my parents arguing. Majority of time, what they were arguing about was money. So all of this was built into my programming, seeing my parents stress over money. As I was journaling, I also realized that I had a bit of a hatred. I despised wealthy people. And this made me really uncomfortable because even at that time, I knew wealthy people and I knew that they were not bad people. They especially weren't bad people because they were wealthy. Sure, there are some people who are like that. There are some really greedy people. who will step on anyone to make a dollar. But the majority of wealthy people I knew were not like that. Yet I saw them that way. I saw them as greedy. I saw them as people who were taking advantage of others. So you can probably see how this is building up. If I associated pain with money, why would I want money if it's painful and I turn into something I don't want to be? So this is where the beliefs started to come out. The other belief, a very powerful one that I was able to uncover through journaling, is I can't make money doing something I enjoy. And the only way to make money is by doing something I don't like. I remember when I wrote that out on my journal, and I was like, whoa, okay, wow, okay. So if I'm carrying this belief around in my unconscious, once again, how is this shaping my reality about money? Up until that point, I had only worked jobs and had a business that I did not like. Why? Because my goal was to make more money. My goal is to make more money. That means I have to do a lot more of what I don't like to do, because that's the belief. And I also shied away and looked the other way when it came to making money by doing something that I liked. I went to LA to be a filmmaker, get in the film business, never even walked out the front door. I mean, I did a lot of writing, but I never really connected with that and did something with that. Why? I didn't believe I was going to make any money doing it. Now, I wanted to make money doing it, but I had a deeply held belief that I could not. So I was always in this tug of war with myself. Once you're able to get all of this out into the light, so you're mining for these thoughts, these feelings, these beliefs, and you want to just get them all out. Don't try to make sense of it. Don't fight with yourself, and don't criticize yourself for having these beliefs. First, just allow yourself to purge all of this, okay? Without judgment. It's not going to help you to judge yourself about these things. Once it's all out, then you can start questioning these beliefs and these feelings and these thoughts. And you really stop to ask yourself, in what ways must you be thinking in order to feel the way that you feel about money? So you want to find out, what are the thoughts that you have about money that you're giving your attention to? We've got lots of thoughts. Thoughts are coming and going all the time. So when you're able to be honest with yourself and connect with those feelings that you have about money, the next step is to ask yourself, well, what must I be thinking? What thoughts am I giving my attention to that would cause me to feel that way about money? Even though it seems like it's happening in the world and I have no control over it, still ask the question, what must I be thinking and believing about money that is making this happen? The best system of questioning to soften those beliefs is the NLP meta model. This is the first NLP model. It's a language-based model. It's unfortunate that not much attention is given to this in NLP trainings. Usually you spend maybe a half a day on it. And most of the time, within the training, they don't take time to practice it or give you time to practice it. And because most people don't really understand what it is, they overlook it. Before I started my first or attended my first NLP practitioner training, I asked a person who was somewhat well-known in the NLP world and was a full-time coach, full-time teacher. And I asked him, I said, can you give me any advice for learning NLP? And he said, yeah, learn the meta model. It is the basis for all of NLP. If you understand the meta model, everything else about NLP will come much easier. And he was absolutely right. And it took me years, and I don't mean years of every day working on the meta model. I would work on the meta model, I'd go learn other stuff, and then I kept coming back to the meta model. Below this video, in the description, you can get a PDF for the meta model. It's not everything that I teach about the meta model. If you want everything, there's a practitioner training that I created called the Ultimate NLP Practitioner Training. It's online. It's go at your own pace. It's way inexpensive. We're making it super inexpensive so that pretty much anyone can enroll in it and learn this. And you'll get all that you need to know about the meta model in that training, as well as some of the other things I'm going to discuss. So all of that you'll find in the description below this video so that you can do the process that I'm talking about here. So you can meta model the beliefs that you have and really soften them and sometimes completely transform them. And then you can get yourself to a place where you can say, what do I want to believe instead of the beliefs that I have now? I can give you little examples of what I mean by meta modeling. So what do I mean by meta modeling? All wealthy people are greedy. So how would I meta model this? Well, this is what we call a universal quantifier. And that's when we make these very broad, sweeping generalizations about something. All, always, never. That's your universal quantifier. Wealthy people is very vague. So there's some deletion in there. So I could say, which wealthy people? We call that a deletion. Greedy is also rather vague. Greedy in what way? So if you think about it, if you break this down and you start breaking this apart using the meta model, what I would do for myself, and you can do this with clients if you're a coach, you could say, is that absolutely true that all wealthy people are greedy? There's no exceptions to this? So I asked myself that. I was like, well, no, of course not. I know plenty of exceptions to this. I know plenty of wealthy people who are not greedy. They're good people. By me asking that question and having to go in and get that information, it softens this belief. This is not absolutely true. So that plays into like, well, which wealthy people are greedy? It was easier to name wealthy people who were not greedy than to name wealthy people who were greedy. In fact, when I had to think about this, which wealthy people, I thought of like famous people that you hear about who are greedy or have done really awful things. I couldn't say that there was anyone I knew who was wealthy that was really greedy. So again, it busts this up even more. The more I had to think about this, the more it just seemed like, well, no, this isn't true. This isn't real. So this really softens the belief when you can ask good questions about it. So what was the other belief I have? I can't make money doing something I enjoy. So I can't, this is a modal operator. This is another red flag. That's when you know that you're bumping up against your map of reality. So I can't make money. I could say another deletion. How much money? Doing something I enjoy. This is very vague. Doing what I enjoy. I could go on enjoying which way. I could also say according to who. Now it might be obvious. I might say, well, according to me. But when you're actually asked a question like that, when someone makes a statement that seems like just universally true, which is, or the way it's stated is that it's universally true, you can always say that, well, according to who? What that does is it puts the responsibility back on me to defend that now. When you don't have a performer, the one who's saying it, it can feel like, oh, it's just like the universe said it, and that's just how it is. But when you actually have to take responsibility for it, well, that seems a little shaky now. So the main one is I can't. Well, what if I could? What would that be like? That's how you question a modal operator. What if you could make money doing something you enjoy? What would that be like if you could do that? And so that's the question that I would ask. I can only make money doing something I don't like. And again, there's a modal operator of possibility here, which still works against me. I can, but only under certain conditions. I can, but only if it's something I don't like. Again, I would question that. Well, what if you could make money doing something that you do like? And then we can go through all the deletions about how much money, what is the something, and all that. So after I asked these questions, I softened up these beliefs quite a bit. In order to answer the questions, you or the person you're working with has to go in, we call it deep structure, and find sensory-based information to pull back into that map of reality. And when you do that, it enriches the map, it gives it more information, and then you go, oh, yeah, there's more to this than these sweeping generalizations and these sweeping limitations that I've put on myself. So once you bust these up, then ask yourself, what do you want to believe instead? The one about all wealthy people being greedy, I knew that wasn't true. So I said, what do I want to believe instead? Well, I want to believe that I can be even more generous if I'm wealthy. So I did a parts integration instead of, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to become a greedy person, to I can in fact be more generous if I'm more successful and more wealthy. So that part that was resisting was now fully on board with that, because that's what the part wanted for me. I value generosity. I value kindness. So that became part of my game plan. The wealthier I become, the more successful I become, the more generous I become. And it feels good just even saying that. It feels very fulfilling. I can feel the wholeness in myself when I say that. The one about me having to do something I don't enjoy to make money, and I can't make money doing something I enjoy, I flipped that one to, it's easier to make money doing something I enjoy. And I remember when I wrote that out the first time, it still felt foreign, even though I knew that's what I wanted to believe. And it kind of became like a hypothesis. Can I prove this to be true? I would like to see if that's possible. Now it seems so obvious to me. Yes, of course, it's so much easier to make money doing something you enjoy. When I was doing insurance, I did not enjoy insurance. So my motivation was quite lacking. My motivation was only around making more money. And then I was beating myself up against these limiting beliefs. I couldn't win and I felt miserable. And that's why I ended up in a depression at that time. Now it seems so obvious. It's so much easier to make money doing something you enjoy because you enjoy it. So you're more motivated to do it, and you will get out there and do it even on days where things aren't going well because you enjoy it. So you have additional motivation. Makes it so much easier. There's one more major step, and that is what we call mapping across. Mapping across is like the DNA of NLP modeling. So you want to understand how that belief is constructed. How does it stay in place? Because you can't just say, well, I don't want to believe something. The meta model helps you bust up that belief. And then when you're switching to what do you want to believe instead about you and money, you have to understand the structure, the way that you structure your beliefs. And this is why affirmations don't work, because there is an unconscious structure that is holding that belief in place. Beliefs are precious to us. That's the only thing we have to navigate a world with so many unknowns. So we create beliefs. How do we create beliefs? We select and collect information to solidify those beliefs. A lot of our limiting beliefs are about protecting us. We experience fear or we have something bad happen to us. And so we select and collect that information and turn it into a belief that's supposed to protect us. Sometimes it does a good job of that and sometimes it doesn't. Just understand that anytime you have a belief that is about protecting you, there's always a limitation involved. So instead of just trying to annihilate the belief and take that off completely, I transformed the belief. I turned it into something that meets my other values, that the values work together now. Generosity and success, generosity and wealth, rather than against each other. So I don't need that protection anymore because I'm aligned with that value. You want to understand that structure, write all that down. Mainly, most of the mapping across is done with submodalities. It's all explained in the PDF. I also want to know, well, what's a belief that I feel very certain about and that I also really like and I think really helps me in life? For me, it's always been persistent. I've always been a very persistent person. If you ask me, Damon, are you a persistent person? I'm going to tell you yes, really fast and very congruently because I know that about myself. And then I could say, well, how do I know that about myself? So I have all these examples, thousands of examples. I can just keep coming up with one after the other. So when I understand that structure and that it's here, how it's all set up, and this is what makes me feel certain about this belief, then I can go, okay, well, what is it that I want to believe? I want to believe that I can be a more generous person if I'm successful and wealthy. Okay. And now I know the structure of a belief that feels very certain to me. Now I have that structure. Now all I have to do is map in the information to that structure. So was there ever a time when I made money doing something that I enjoy? Was there ever a time where I was at work doing a job that overall I did not enjoy, but actually I did enjoy it that day and I made money? Yeah, there actually were those. Okay. Map that information into this structure and keep finding those examples and keep mapping it in to this structure that makes me feel very certain about it. What has happened is your conscious mind has disconnected from your unconscious and you think you're at odds with each other, and that's not true. All parts of you want fulfillment. All parts of you want you to be fulfilled and happy and fulfill your values. So it's not your enemy. You're going to make peace with money. You're going to stop despising rich people. You're going to stop associating pain with money. Just be very careful about how you judge people and yourself around money. Catch yourself doing that. Write it out. If you notice you say something in your mind that sounds very judgmental of yourself or other people as it relates to money, write it down. If you catch yourself having resentments or you're despising someone or objects like money, write all of that down. And you're going to really elicit this and all of your beliefs around it, the beliefs that hold that in place. Now, here's the other thing too, and it seems like certain people can do all of this, but then there's some sort of disconnect between the belief and reality. Take your new beliefs and act as if you believe them already. And what actions would you take? And start doing that.